Elon Musk built SpaceX on an idea that sounded for a long time like science fiction. Make humanity multi-planetary. But for years that meant one word, Mars. But this week, Musk changed the destination. What if the biggest story here isn't that SpaceX wants a city on the moon, but Musk is suddenly talking like a CEO who's preparing for Wall Street? What if Mars was always a dream, but moon is the business plan? Something you can iterate on every week, not every 26 months. And what if this pivot is less about exploration and more about reducing risk right before a rumored IPO that could be the largest in history? Welcome to Business Insights Daily. I'm your host, Shashank. Today, we're unpacking SpaceX's sudden shift from Mars to the moon and what it reveals about ambition, timelines, and the stories companies tell when money is on the line. What Musk actually said. On February 8th, Musk pointed that SpaceX has shifted focus to building a self growing city on the moon because, in his words, it could be achieved in less than 10 years, while a Mars city could take 20 plus years. He also framed the moon as a fast learning loop. You can launch the moon far more frequently than to Mars, which depends on planetary alignment window that arrives about every 26 months. And Musk didn't fully abandon Mars. He said SpaceX would pursue it, suggesting the company could begin building a Mars city in about 5 to 7 years, but that the moon is overriding priority because it's faster. On the surface, this sounds like a simple strategy update. Moon first, Mars later. But if you listen closely, it also sounds like something else. Timeline being written in a way that's easier to finance. Why the moon is iterable. Let's talk about why the moon is such an attractive pivot, especially if you're trying to convince skeptical investors. Musk's argument is basically the moon is close enough to treat like a fast prototype environment. A lunar trip is about 2 days. The launch window is frequent. Musk claims as often as every 10 days when you can test, fail, fix, and try again rapidly. Earth is always nearby, which reduces the one-way door of risk of early settlement attempts. Mars, by contrast, is a slow feedback loop. If something breaks, you can't just send a repair mission next week. You're waiting months, sometimes years to try again. That's the operational logic. But there's also a narrative logic. The moon feels like a nearer term achievement, the clearer path to milestones. Landing, habitats, power systems, resource extraction. Each one a checkpoint investors can track. Now, the part industry watchers keep circling. Timing. Several reports point to a potential SpaceX IPO later this year, with some speculation that the company could raise as much as $50 billion and pursue valuations around the $1 trillion range. If you're preparing for an IPO, you're prepared to tell a story that works in public markets, where investors ask relentlessly, when do the returns show up? What are the risks? And how do we measure progress? A multi-billion-dollar Mars effort would take 20 plus years. Musk's own number can sound like an epic mission or a gigantic, long-dated liability. The moon, by comparison, is a way to keep the dream alive while shortening the timeline. It lets SpaceX say, we're still building the future of civilization, but we're doing it in a way that can produce real milestones in over a decade. And if you're a banker trying to sell the IPO, milestones matter. If you've listened enough founder stories, you know this moment. A founder has a grand vision, sometimes the grandest in the room. And for years, that vision is what recruits talents, attracts customers, and builds cult level of disbelief. But then as the company grows, another force shows up. Credibility. Not that do we believe you sense, but can you deliver predictably in a way that we can underwrite sense? A self-growing city is still an audacious phrase, but on the moon, it becomes a statement that can be broken into steps. Establish repeatable heavy lift launches, build reliable power and life support, and industrialize construction methods that can extend capability until the settlement can scale itself. Mars remains the mythic endpoint. The moon becomes the proving ground. And that's a subtle, profound change in how SpaceX is presenting itself not just as a moonshot company, but as an execution company, one that wants to be judged by cadence, iteration, and progress markers. For more than a decade, Mars was the story people associated with SpaceX, the big red distance promise. But now, Musk is telling a different story. One, but the moon is the place you build something that can grow on its own. And you do it fast enough to matter in a decade, not a generation. And if IPO is really approaching, this pivot might be SpaceX doing what every great builder eventually has to do. Not abandon the vision, but translate it into milestones the world is willing to fund. Thank you for listening to Business Insights Daily. I'm your host, Sashank, and I'll see you next time.